Well, now it's time for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning. Let's bring in Arise analyst Constance Ikwoku. Good morning, Dr. Constance.
Good morning, Yolanda.
Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you too. It's midweek already.
Oh, yes.
It's already, is it 11th of March?
Today's the 12th.
Today's the 12th.
12, okay. Time is flying.
Absolutely.
Good morning to you, Charles.
Good morning, Dr. Constance. I'm sure you're looking forward to TGIF. Don't worry, it's just 48 hours away.
It's still 2 days away, so I'm looking forward. You're correct. All right, to look at the papers with us this morning, we have Emmanuel Aziken. He is a columnist with Vanguard newspaper. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin with This Day newspaper. So in This Day, we have Tinubu urges adherence to rule of law, ask Fubara to stoop to conquer. For the second time, I think, the president is publicly speaking on the rivers crisis. He spoke when some Niger Delta leaders broke fast with him yesterday at the State House. And his counsel is that the Supreme Court judgment should be obeyed. He talked about Nigeria being a country governed by the rule of law, urged Governor Sim Fubara to toe the path of peace, and literally said, you know, you have to stoop to conquer, according to this report. He also asked the Niger Delta leaders to privately intervene and counsel Governor Fubara. Emmanuel, what do you make of the president's admonition? Is this of any import now, considering the fact that he initially attempted to patch the differences between these two men, and that fell through?
Well, the insinuation in many quarters is that the president was inclined towards one of the parties. But no one can fault the president in his admonition that every stakeholder in Rivers State should incline themselves to the rule of law. You understand that this problem actually revolted around the defection, as it were, by some members of the House of Assembly in Rivers State, and the proclamation of that seat vacant by the state governor and by his sympathizers. But I think that is where the governor's camp seriously erred, because the constitution gives the leeway to only the speaker to declare a seat vacant. Because if you read that provision in the constitution, it just says it's the speaker that shall declare a seat vacant. But the complication in Rivers State was that the speaker himself was among those who defected. So, and in that situation, I think the only other provision, the only other leeway was for the court to make its pronouncement, and that is what the court has done at this point in time. Indeed,
and Charles, when you listen to the president, we're governed by the rule of law. Are we really in a country where politicians and even the government, we have seen in the past, and even presently, well, in the past, flouted court judgments?
If I say what I feel about that, the repercussions will be great. But I will say I totally disagree with the president that we are a country governed by the rule of law. There are too many instances, and it's probably that issue of not being properly governed by the rule of law that has even led to this state of affairs in Rivers State. So I guess when, you know, we point a finger in one direction, the other 3 or 4 fingers are pointing back at us. Well, he did say that Sim Fubara should stoop to conquer. How do you stoop when the people you are supposed to conquer are wielding an axe, so that when you stoop, your head is likely going to get chopped off? He should think again.
Well, very complicated, but we do know that politicians are a part of the problem we're facing in the country when it comes to court judgments, when it comes to creating untenable situations that, you know, just precipitate crisis in the country. Well, let's move on to the next paper, New Telegraph, this morning. We have 2 stories quickly there to look at. Former Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Dubem Onya, passes away at 73. And the House of Reps members have asked the government to, or the CBN, to halt ATM transaction charges. They said this is on grounds that it causes additional financial burden on the people. Your take on these 2 articles, Emmanuel?
Well, first of all, I must talk on Dubem Onya. In fact, I must tell you that I'm a little bit I was surprised at the age at which he passed, because this was a man who accomplished very early in life. He was a member of the Constituent Assembly, I think in his 30s. And his departure is something will be a major blow to one of his major political collaborators, that is Atiku Abubakar. He was a great ally of Atiku Abubakar. And in fact, I think he sits on the board of the Shehu Musa Yaradua Foundation, which is facilitated by Atiku Abubakar. We will miss him. Nigeria will miss him. And on the tax, on the
ATM
charges, when the reps pass motions like this, I expect them, it's like as if they are feeling the pulse of the people. But that is not far enough, because motions are rarely heeded in Nigeria. The legal instrument for them to, if they really feel convinced that the people are suffering, first of all, is to raise a bill, make it legal, because motions do not carry the force of law. Make it legal by raising a bill to compel the CBN to redress or to reverse these changes. That is number one. Number two, actions speak louder than voices. Actions speak louder than words. The reps themselves should also, by changing their own style of governance, by cutting their coats according to their sizes. Nigerians will just feel that all this they are doing is just for showmanship, because in the real essence, they've not cut their bets.
All right. Let's move on to Daily Trust. Two stories again here. We're seeing changes to the proposed tax reform bills. VAT is supposed to be, or will be dropped here. The VAT increase will be dropped. That was to be expected following deliberations on that bill. And then let's focus on the other story. Life expectancy in Nigeria, 954.6 years, below global average. That's frightening. That's such a young age to die, and the global average for both genders is 73.3. And when you look at this story, it talks about diseases contributing mainly to this short life expectancy in Nigeria. Charles, your thoughts?
When I saw that life expectancy, I said, well, why haven't I written my will? I'm close enough. Well, in any case, yes. We have a healthcare system that has not helped our people at all. And so diseases, lifestyle, I mean, at a certain age, there are certain things we shouldn't be indulging in. Maybe heavy drinking, eating all kinds of things. These have actually contributed a lot. I mean, I've lost a number of friends within the same age range. They even died much younger because of what I would attribute as living rather not carefully. Exactly. Yes. So unfortunately, that's where we found ourselves. But I think we need a proactive healthcare system, not just for the purposes of treatment and healthcare delivery, but also advice and counseling.
That's right, Charles. And I'd like to add in there, I realized one thing about Nigeria. There's so many cases of high blood pressure. It's like every single person I come across has some sort of high blood pressure issue.
And diabetes, those two.
Absolutely, those two. And it's very concerning. And I wonder, is it healthcare? Is it the diet? Is it people not doing enough? Is it everyday stresses, the economy? 54 is tremendously young, and that's a very scary reality.
Yolanda, is a combination of factors. There's the lifestyle.
Right.
There's limited access to health care. So when you read this report, it says 63% of Nigerians are living in multi-dimensional poverty. So when you are poor and there's unemployment, you have little money or limited resources to gain access to health care. So these are some of the factors that are affecting Nigerians. But I think people really have to take their healthcare very seriously, because that personal responsibility is also key.
You said the right words, personal responsibility. That's key.
Well, such a sad story. Let's move on to The Punch. Here we have herders farmers conflict continue in Ondo, Benue. Nasarawa as 30 are killed. Then there's also a fresh crisis brewing in the Lagos State House of Assembly over 5 billion naira spent on vehicle purchase. The story goes that Speaker Mudashiru Obasa had approved funds for this purchase from his preferred bidder in Dubai. After he was impeached, Deputy Mojisola Meranda, who became Speaker, proceeded with the project by approving funds for another supplier. On resumption, Obasa was said to have lost it. The vehicles in question are Toyota Prado SUVs and Toyota Land Cruisers. Emmanuel, when the citizens complain about government expenditure on pricey items, this is an example.
You can see they are purchasing 2025 luxury vehicles.
Why does it have to be these pricey vehicles anyway?
And we have locally made vehicles in Nigeria. If you don't want to purchase from Innocent, you even have Nord in Ogun State. You have Pujo in Kaduna State. Why must you be draining our foreign reserve to feed your consumption, to feed your luxury? And this is very, it's regrettable. It shows, as I said earlier, that our lawmakers do not prioritize the interest of the common man. And mark you, if I must say, by what Speaker Miranda did, saved the taxpayers in Lagos 2 billion naira, which ordinarily would have gone to Dubai.
Come to think of it, the car manufacturers that you're talking about, do they manufacture bulletproof vehicles? Because usually when politicians are going for such luxury vehicles, they ensure that they are also bulletproof.
Well, maybe whether they do or they don't, maybe because that need has not been, it has not been explored yet.
As a matter of fact, the purchase of vehicles shouldn't even have been the priority given, the confusion. Yes, exactly. That impeachment and replacement were causing. They should have actually tried to stabilize the polity, but somebody actually went ahead and prioritized the purchase of vehicles.
When I was growing up, government officials, we know that they rode in modest vehicles like Peugeot. It's very, very modest because it is public money. It is not your personal funds. But these days, when you see a convoy of government vehicles moving, it's like it's a movie. It doesn't look like it's people that are serving.
It's profligacy in motion.
So it's become a culture that they're not really thinking about how that impacts the psyche of the average Nigerian.
Not at all.
Anyway, let's see Daily Independent this morning. ECOWAS advocates stand by force to fight terrorism. The Economic Community of West African States sees this as essential to tackle cross-border crimes. The region hopes to put together collective resources, expertise, and commitment to foster peace and stability in the region. I mean, in the past, there were operational, logistical, and financial problems for this standby force. So they would have to overcome all of this in order to make it functional or to achieve the goal, especially now that we're facing challenges, Emmanuel.
Well, the situation we are faced in the ECOWAS region is a major foreign policy challenge for the President Tinubu. There is no beating about the bush. The president, I think, failed in his initial approach to the crisis. That is why we saw recently the Chief of Defense Staff trying to go through NGOs to reach across to the Sahel states. The president, we do not have the capacity to go and start fighting outside when we have not addressed the situation in Nigeria. I think the president should prioritize diplomacy and use the resources he's deploying to the Sahel to confront the situation, the insecurity in local Delta and across Nigeria. People are still being killed. When we talk about life expectancy, a great contribution to the decrease in life expectancy in Nigeria is as a result of insecurity. People are being mauled down regularly.
I'm glad that point came up because I was also thinking about it when we're looking at the Punch, and I saw the headline about the herders, even though we weren't able to speak about it. And I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is all those previous years coming back again. And if we do not, hamper down on it at this moment, it's going to be a problem bigger than than it was before.
Yeah, you know, when you talked about the Chief of Defense Staff, during that meeting with other ECOWAS leaders, he really spoke about the Sahel states, Mali, Burkina Faso, and he sort of opened the door for them, saying they were free to come back if they were interested to do that. So that shows you that we need to be together as a region. We need to work together. He spoke about that collaboration is required in order for us to make progress security-wise in the sub-region. All right, let's move on to the international headlines. A daily graphic, let's see what we have for you today. The government of Ghana will spend 291 billion cedis this year on transformation policies, according to the Minister of Finance, who was presenting the budget in the parliament. Then Citizen newspaper, first a bus crash yesterday that killed 16 people and injured 45. And then the other headline, Trump tariffs won't kill us. South Africans analyzing how the tariffs by President Trump will impact the country. The verdict here is that SA's trade with America is not that big enough to tank the local economy. However, it will hurt some sectors such as farmers and automotive manufacturers. For instance, the Americans love South African wine, this report says. Yolanda, what's your thought on this?
Well, what can I say? Trump and South Africa have been going back and forth for a while now. And, you know, we're even speaking about how Americans like South African wine. I think the whole world likes South African wine. But going back to Trump tariffs won't kill us, I like that. South Africa is saying that, you know what, we'll stand and we will be able to make it through despite these tough challenges. And just briefly, another headline you touched on briefly about the bus accident yesterday was very sad indeed. I don't know if you heard the update, but they had said that some people were actually going to be prosecuted because there was so much negligence in how that accident actually occurred.
Our hearts goes out to the victims.
That's right.
There's also, on that tariff discussion, there's what they call the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, applies to a lot of African countries where it facilitates trade export of some products to the United States of America. So here the South Africans are saying that it is going to affect 120,000 jobs in South Africa. So that's a bit of a shaky bit for them, and they're trying to see how to work around that.
I'm surprised that Donald Trump has actually not touched on AGOA yet. I mean, he has actually crippled or even obliterated USAID, and he hasn't talked about AGOA yet, but I guess he hasn't come to that yet.
Please,
Charles,
I think AGOA will soon expire. I think it has the deadline. I think it will soon be reached.
But it can be renewed.
Exactly.
Yes, it's been rolling over the years. All right, let's see Daily Mail. Ukraine agrees a ceasefire deal. Trump, I'll talk to Putin, but it takes two to tango. So finally, Emmanuel, Ukraine caved in to pressure. And since it has done that, the intelligence sharing will be reinstated in addition to the aid that was suspended.
President Donald Trump has actually bulldozed his way. He has had his way with Ukraine, and part of this deal is that America would also have inroads into mineral resources in Ukraine. I think this is a president that is putting the interest of his country first, no matter whose horse is God. He's pushing.
He said that America first.
First, yes, and and that should be the priority for every leader, for every governor in Nigeria, for every president in Nigeria. Put the interest of your country first. That's my take on it.
All right. Also, we have the other story in Daily Telegraph. Can we pull that up? Global stock markets in meltdown as Trump tariff war takes hold. In fact, it's being reported that the U.S. stock market lost $4 trillion in value as Trump downplayed this volatility. I mean, policies and decisions have consequences, and that's what we're seeing here, Charles.
Come to think of it, it is one of Trump's closest advisors, closest friends, and closest operative talking about Elon Musk, who has probably been the hardest hit as a consequence of what's going on. Tesla stocks are down. Of course, even the vehicles are being vandalized. Anything that Musk represents is actually under siege. To the point where Trump actually volunteered to use the White House as a showroom for Tesla cars to help his friend. So you see, I mean, it's also a double-edged sword.
Yes, that's right.
So yes, of course, he's also experiencing the backlash in some way.
Absolutely.
In fact, with Canada, he has now rolled back the 50% tariff to 25%.
Oh, yes.
And they are also ready to slap their own tariffs on the U.S. Anyway.
So unreasonable what is done to Canada. So unreasonable because it doesn't just make sense.
Right.
At least he knows when to back off.
Well, that's all we can take today on the paper review. Emmanuel Azikiwe, columnist with Vanguard newspaper. Wonderful to have you today.
Thank you.
And wonderful, Dr. Constance, for you leading the review today as well. And so that's all we have time for here on Daybreak. It's goodbye from me, Charles Eruka.
And I'm Yolanda Robert. Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Goodbye.